We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Councilman Morris had a family matter he had to attend to. He called me a few minutes ago.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda this evening is a presentation, We Count 2020 Census Campaign. Kendall Jackson, Director of Community Development, will be presenting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing some time to talk about this very important event. It happens once every 10 years, and that is the decennial census. This would be my third decennial census with the city of Joliet. And I have to say that this one seems to be, they're all important, but this one has a lot more in terms of support from the Census Bureau, from the state of Illinois, in terms of resources to get the word out. I just have a brief presentation to go through here. 10 minutes, that's all it's estimated to take to do the questionnaire. And that will leverage 10 years of funding, both from a federal, state, and local perspective to help shape our community. There's $219.5 million in federal funding. And when you divide that out by the number of, and that's for Will County, when you divide that out by the number of residents, that's $313 per capita, per resident, for federal funds. For the city of Joliet, when we did the math, that comes to $46.9 million in federal funding. And this is at stake in terms of this count that's coming up. We checked with the Illinois Municipal League and their estimates. The income tax, $107 per capita. The use tax, $33.65 per capita. Motor fuel tax, $24.30. When you add all of those up, it's $165.20, and these are allocations from the state of Illinois to the city of Joliet. Federal resources, again, $46.9 million. The state allocation would be $24.7 for a total of $71.6 million, or $477.86 per person in the city of Joliet. $71.6 million, and that's on an annual basis in terms of the funding that would accrue to our community. So what are we doing? We formed a Joliet Area Complete Count Committee made up of the Census Bureau, of course. They have a resource person that's assisting us with information and data, marketing material. City of Joliet, we're doing outreach. We've been very fortunate. We have a very generous grant that we got through the state of Illinois, where we hired someone to help us with outreach and marketing. We're using a portion of that funding to do inserts in the water bills that are going out to every property in the city of Joliet with census information. We have been advertising on our digital reader boards throughout town over the last several months on the census, as well as the census jobs that the Census Bureau was promoting. And we will be a self-response center. So there will be computers here at City Hall where folks can come in if they're paying their water bill here and they want to do the questionnaire, they want to respond online. We will have that availability here at City Hall for them to do that. Joliet Public Library, another partner, they've been doing a great deal of outreach. They also got a generous grant to help with marketing. They will be a self-response center as well. So there are computer setups at both the downtown branch as well as the West Library. Folks can go there to respond to the census questionnaire. Spanish Community Center, they are assisting with the hard-to-count areas. Historically, Joliet has had several neighborhoods that have been hard to count, particularly our Hispanic neighborhoods, Spanish-speaking households. So we're paying extra attention to those areas where we know we've had an issue in the past with getting a complete count. They're doing outreach. They've already been in the neighborhoods, canvassing the neighborhoods, just to let people know what's coming and getting folks comfortable with responding to the census questionnaire. They will also be a self-response center where you can go there and respond to the questionnaire online as well. The Village of Rockdale and Crest Hill, they are part of our Joliet area complete count committee. And they have been doing a great deal of outreach as well. The timeline, starting March 12th, people will start to receive their census information about how to respond and be invited to do it either online or by paper questionnaire. You can also respond via phone. April 1st is the Census Day. That's the national promotion. All households that have not responded by the 8th of April will also receive a paper questionnaire. And then census workers will be out in the neighborhoods canvassing those households that did not respond, trying to keep the count up. And then July 31st would be the last day to respond. The Census Bureau, it's important to make this statement. The Bureau cannot divulge any information that anyone provides on the questionnaire. It's against the law. And it's one of the things that is really being stressed at this particular census. There's a great deal of nervousness about responding to questionnaires with personal information. So the Bureau is being extra careful in getting the messaging out that they cannot share your information. Again, ways to respond via phone, online, or the paper questionnaire, and everyone is required by law to respond to the census. So we need your help, and what you can do is share data, encourage people to participate, put things in social media posts that help market this effort. Email your constituents, talk to your constituents, let them know how important this is. There's a great deal of funding at stake for Joliet. And also discuss the importance of this at community events. Last slide here, additional information. The 2020 census.gov is sort of the clearinghouse for all of the census information on the survey, on the questionnaire, and other important items as well. We have a link, the city has a link on its website, which is the second one listed here, www.joliet.gov, residents 2020 census. And there are additional links on that link to the other links that are on the board here. And finally, our campaign is called We Count 2020. We have a website, and that links to all the information on our complete count committee and all the activities that are planned. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Ken, do you know how one can become a response center? What goes
Would you be interested to know where to go or who to contact?
Yes, could you send me that information? I'd like to do that in the Forest Park area up there, that we could bring people in and make sure we get everybody registered.
Yeah, we'll
on
make
that
that
end.
happen.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Kendall?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Since all information is private, I take it we won't have any type of account after a month or 2 months of how we're doing?
No, it usually takes a while for the Bureau to compile all of the information and then report it out. I think it's up to a year or two after the actual census is taken before they start to report out the numbers.
Thank you.
Since you made us wear these T-shirts, I think you should take your coat off and show it off.
Oh, sure.
Let people see what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
Mayor?
Yes.
Hey, Kendall, you know the period of time where the census workers go into the community to knock on doors to the ones who haven't responded, how many attempts will they make? to like a
Yes,
typical house?
that's a very
home?
good question, and I remember from past censuses, and I don't think this one is any different. They will make every attempt possible to get the number.
Okay.
So they will come, they will knock on your door. If no one's there, they will come back again and again and again. And oftentimes, they will go to the next door neighbor to try to understand if there's an issue. Hey, have the folks been there, over the past couple of weeks? Are they out of town? That kind of thing. So they make every attempt possible to get the number.
Kendall,
Yes.
walk the runway, pivot, come out.
I don't think anyone wants to see that.
All right, thank you, Kendall.
I believe Kendall
Yeah. If we
recommended
could,
we have a
since we're
photo.
wearing the shirts, if we could,
Oh, I'll stand up and take your
Picture.
coats off.
Take the coats off.
Say, take your coat off. See?
special thanks to Councilman Hug. Putting a
Is that
t-shirt
triple
on.
extra large you got there?
We get a picture. And
Does he want us to come down? Is that what you want?
What's the best?
I'm gonna do what you want, because this is your baby.
It's not that far.
you able to get everybody in? Slide in, shorty. Yeah. Mr. Shanahan, what are you?
If Chris is in, then I'll be in.
Is this even? It looks out of whack. Are we good?
We're good. Okay, everybody say 1, 2, 3, say census.
Census.
Common census.
It's a happy group.
Thank you.
Hold that thought.
Oh, that's why Terry left all of a sudden. You want to be in the week out 2020.
Todos cantamos.
Week out.
It's a weekend.
Week out.
Todos cantamos 2020. See, I can speak Spanish. You didn't know that, did you?
No.
Well, I'm learning. You didn't know that? You didn't know this either, did you?
Oh my God.
Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Is there anyone present that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening?
Kinds of secrets.
Seeing none, we'll pass it to the interim city manager to discuss tomorrow night's agenda items.
All right, thank you and good evening. I kind of like the idea of maybe theme shirts every council meeting.
I can relate to it.
Tomorrow night, we'll have proclamations for some local heroes, along with some fire department awards, so that should be pretty exciting. Under council committee reports, we'll have public safety, public service, and ad hoc city manager search committee. Under consent agenda, we'll have, as always, the approval of the minutes. Council Memo 111-20 is our position vacancy memo. We have two positions that are on the list tomorrow. We have a firefighter paramedic position as well as budget officer, both being replaced due to retirements. A number of payroll approvals, basically extending from December 20th through February 13th. Our first agenda item will be Council Memo 119-20, which is a motion that would approve the process of going out for an executive search for the city manager position. The city manager ad hoc search committee has asked our HR director and staff to prepare some information on search options to basically move into a continuation of the recruitment process. Our HR director has researched a number of options of firms that are available. Also included in the packet a list of potential budget options. If the council does agree that this is something you want to do, we'll work with the firms to get more formal proposals, do the necessary vetting, reference checks, et cetera, and then bring that back for the next council meeting. I would point out that there are sufficient funds within the city manager's fund to budget this, so there's no need for a budget amendment. Any questions? Next agenda item, Council Memo 120-20, which is our 5-year vehicle replacement program. You recall during the budget process, our Public Works Department and fleet staff produced documentation that we had about $16 million in need relating to fleet replacement. During the budget process, there was a 3 cent per gallon gas tax added to the budget, and it was identified as being something that would be dedicated towards meeting those fleet needs. Once council did approve that, we worked collaboratively within our staff to really identify what were the priorities, the funding scheme, the schedules, et cetera, that could put together a 5-year program. We put together the program that you have, and on the dais, there's a revision. There was a slight change to the second year, but what you have in front of you is the current proposal. This basically looks at 5 years of need. It's been worked out collaboratively within the departments. So folks identified their priorities, worked through the fleet services, and we feel that this is something that everybody is happy with in terms of meeting the most critical dire needs. You'll note that first year, there's total funding of $5.6 million. That consists of $4 million in a 10-year bond issue, along with the annual funding that we would receive through the gas tax in the amount of $1.6 million. So in effect, a $5.6 million program in year one. Obviously, then in year two and subsequent years, it goes to that 1.6 of annual amount of annual revenue minus the debt service that's required to retire the bond. Every year, what we'll do is, as we move into the budget process, we will, take that first year, rip it off, and add a new year to it. So we always have a 5-year rolling program. And there may be changes. Obviously, some vehicles could last longer. Some vehicles could last less time as we get into subsequent years. We also have vehicle accidents, any number of things that may happen to vehicles. But it's a living document. It's not something that gets approved and this is it. We're going to always follow the exact same process over the next 5 years. But we'll run that through council as we get close to the budget. And it's real similar to what we do with our street program. We obviously do streets, and then we look at new streets and try to keep a rolling list so that there's some expectation amongst the users as to what we're doing. The Public Service Committee did review this and was fine with it. And I'll point out that this motion would do two things. One, it would approve the 5-year plan, and secondly, it would authorize staff to begin the process of starting the purchasing process. Doesn't mean we just go out and buy all these vehicles. We'll bring that back to council, but obviously there are bid specs and a number of things we'll have to do to start that process. So that is our 5-year vehicle program. Any questions? Next item is our liquor license and application process. Our Deputy Liquor Commissioner is here. He'll address the applicant.
Mayor, Council, Council Memo 121-20. Public hearing was held on 1/21/20 at 9:15 a.m. for a request for a transfer of a Class B liquor license. The applicant is Hammers Express, Inc., DBA Fireman Ted Sports Bar, Theodore Pazinski, located at 2771 Black Road. No citizens appeared in opposition. No outstanding monies owed to the city. Police, Fire, and Building Department have no issues. Based on the facts of the hearing, Liquor Commissioner is recommending approval of the license. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item tomorrow will be public hearings. These are 3 public hearings that will be scheduled to discuss various special service areas. I'm going to turn it over to Jim Trisna, who will explain what we're doing.
Yeah, okay, Steve. So this is our standard procedure for when we reconstruct streets that have numerous properties on them that have not paid previously. We had an ordinance to propose to establish a special service area back in the middle of January. Now, tomorrow night, we'll have a public hearing for 3 different streets. Logan Avenue from 2nd to the south end. We previously did Logan from Washington to 2nd last year. Salem Avenue from Jefferson down to Marion. And Mason Avenue from Wilcox to Robb will be part of the, these are the 3 streets we have special service areas on. Essentially, the single-family owner-occupied homes will pay the standard $300 per property. If it's a rental, and if it's owner-occupied up to 3 units, you'll still pay the $300. If it's strictly a rental, it starts out $450 a property. If it's 1 unit, 2 unit equals $850. I think it maxes out at $1,500. If it's commercial, they pay a cost per lineal foot, and again, maxes out though at $1,500 for a piece of, for a individual property. So again, I'll have my engineers here who have these projects tomorrow in case there's questions. They can take the residents out in the hall and speak. But it's our standard procedure we've been doing since probably the mid-90s. Especially, we do the special service here. That in the old days when I first started here, we used to do a volunteer program, and if people didn't pay, you wouldn't get gutter in front of your street. And after a while, the streets people really wanted to get done have been done already. And now you get to the point where some of the people they wouldn't voluntarily pay. So the SSA requires the property owners to participate and helps spread the cost of the street program a little farther.
Okay, any questions on those? Under ordinance and resolutions, Council Memo 127-20 is an ordinance that would establish a date for public hearing and convening the Joint Review Board for a tax increment financing district. As everyone knows, over the last 2 to 3 years, we've been working with Cullinan Properties for the potential development of the Rock Run Crossing development. And one of the major components of that project has been dependent upon a TIF district being established. Obviously, up to this point, all of the effort and success that's occurred with this program, with this project, has involved the fact that we've worked closely with IDOT. IDOT has now earmarked a full interchange at Route 59 and 55, which then allows us to move into a phase where some of the project financials need to be locked in. This is a 263-acre parcel. And as with all TIFs, the first process, it really is filing what's called a feasibility study, eligibility study, excuse me. We did have that document presented to the clerk's office on February 21st. It went online immediately, and that particular study is what will then govern the discussion of the TIF from this point on. We do have a date within this ordinance that establishes a public hearing for June 2nd, and also says it's time for the Joint Review Board to convene. And that consists of all the taxing bodies, basically any taxing body that collects tax. And it turns out we have 2 different school districts because of the location of the property. Any taxing body that collects tax has a seat at the table to discuss this and to review the feasibility, review how the money will be spent, review the overall program, et cetera. And TIFs aren't just something that municipalities establish. It has to meet certain criteria that are established through state statutes. The law firm of Miller, Hall, and Triggs prepared the eligibility study, and they determined that the property did meet the definition of vacant land and also met overall criteria for a blighted area, as it's called. And the reason it's classified as blighted is that there's obsolete platting. There's been a lack of growth in the equalized assessed value over 3 of the last 5 years. And it also, not many people know this because of ag land, but it contributes to downstream flooding because you do have a lot of land area and the water just pretty much sheet flows into the tributaries of the creek. So in effect, it does meet the state criteria. Our next step is to literally go through the process with our Joint Review Board, have the public hearing, and continue on with some of the other financial discussions involving Cullinan. So it's a pretty straightforward process, but obviously this is a pretty big project in terms of its impact on the community. So this should be an interesting evolution of where we go. So any questions on that? Next item is Council Memo 128-20, which is an ordinance that amends the 2020 annual budget for the city. This budget amendment would provide additional funding within the Mayor City Council budget to potentially fund 3 city council members going to the International Council of Shopping Centers conference event that is held annually in Las Vegas. The $7,000 would pretty much fund the 3 in addition to some funds that are already within the Mayor Council budget. And this is a recommendation that came from the Economic Development Committee. Any questions?
I have a question. Why can't that money come from the same pool of money that would hire the search firm for the city manager? Excuse me.
Well, within the city manager's budget, we have professional services for things like consulting. Within each department, we have training and travel. So first thing my finance director would tell me is, where is it being spent? And what we try to do is to keep money within the department where it's actually spent for record keeping and history. Any questions? Next item is under resolutions. It is Council Memo 129-20, and this involves an intergovernmental agreement with Will County pertaining to the preparation of a homeless strategic plan. And I'm going to turn this over to Kendall, who could give more of an explanation.
Thank you, Steve. Mayor and council, this is a request to consider an intergovernmental agreement between the county of Will and the city of Joliet for a homeless strategic plan. We are part of the continuum of care along with the county and others to coordinate housing and services for the homeless. And part of HUD's request to us as well as the county is to put forth a strategic plan for the homeless in terms of more like a framework plan. What are our goals, objectives? What's the strategy that we would want to move forward for addressing the issue, including the use of federal dollars. The ask is for $20,000. The county would also put in $20,000, and there are other partners, including Amita Healthcare and Silver Cross Hospital, that are also funding or would like to fund this study as well. And I think they are both considering $12,000 apiece to go towards the study.
Any questions on that particular item? Under Council Memo 130-20 and 131-20, these are two resolutions that are standard MFT resolutions, so I won't go into any detail there. And then under bids and contracts, amendments, change orders, payments, there's nothing interesting there unless you have a question. Certainly we could continue on.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments this evening?
Mary Beth Gannon, Western Avenue, Joliet. Item 119-20. I think the majority of you folks have a very poor track record in the city manager search. We're coming up on a year on this. And I think at this point, to hire a consulting firm, which is going to cost us even more money, is very wasteful and not being a good steward of the taxpayer. I would say that maybe we should continue our ad hoc committee with Mayor, Jan, and Mr. Turk, and maybe place ads in the proper places instead of hiring a consulting firm. Or better yet, maybe let it go to referendum and let the people of this town pick Marty. You know, we're coming up on a year on this, and, you know, at that time, Mr. Muddring, you said we were in this huge rush, and here we are almost a year later. You know, I just don't know why this is taking so long. You know, Ms. Reardon, who brought us the fuel tax raise, the property tax raise, and took a huge North Point donation, refused to abstain when voting on the removal of Marty, and she's going to be one of these people picking. I don't think you're a good steward to be picking that. So we've had personality tests, which seem a waste of time. We've brought in Mr. Hawk, another waste of time. You know, when's it going to end? When you keep pushing ill-suited, inexperienced, and weak candidates like Mark Rooney, who was anti-union and pro-tax and spend, and then you got Will Jones, who's never worked in a big city and doesn't appear to work in a town that has many minorities, it's showing that you have poor judgment. You know, you have the most qualified person sitting right at the dais, and it's not double-dipping Steve, it's Marty. Save us money, save us time, pick Marty. If you continue to push questionable candidates, I will continue to dig up whatever I can on them and let residents know in volume. I know at least one of you up there likes to brag you're against North Point, but at the end of the day, I care more about the search for city manager. I care about people raising my taxes raising my gas, raising my fees, raising my parking, and I'm not in the minority by any means. So please, no special consulting firm. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak under public comments? I did receive a request for closed session.
Before we do that, Chief Blaski, I know we talked on the phone earlier, maybe tomorrow under new business, I'm calling you. If you can give us an update of what your department's doing with the coronavirus, what precautions you're taking. I'm getting a little bit of phone calls from people or emails about this, so we can address it tomorrow.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
1 second, please. Mayor,
Yes.
can, when we do our other business, can we have Kathy come in to talk about the city manager search?
Sure.
It's been motioned and seconded. Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
All right.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Where can she come in?